world at large took any note of the events of the Brazilian Grand Prix, they were quickly forgotten when, the following day, President Ronald Reagan was shot. Reagan survived the attempt, famously quipping, "Honey, I forgot to duck," to his wife Nancy when she joined him in hospital. Elsewhere, the CDC reported the first official diagnosis of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, known as AIDS. The first commercial microcomputer, the Osborne 1, launched. Bucks Fizz won the Eurovision Song Contest for the UK. Rioting began in Brixton following police racism. And on Grand Prix Day, the first space shuttle, Columbia, was launched from Cape Canaveral. During its maiden flight, the thermostat, the cargo doors and, most importantly, the zero-G toilet all malfunctioned. The F1 teams, meanwhile, moved on to Argentina, and the impressively named Autódromo Municipal del Parque Almirante Brown de la Ciudad de Buenos Aires for the third and final of the 3 flyaway races which began the season. The main talking point among racing fans over the intervening 2 weeks had been the relationship between Alan Jones and Carlos Reutemann and how this might affect the otherwise dominant Williams team, and of course the local Argentine fans knew who they supported. Jean-Pierre Jabouille made his much-awaited debut for the Ligier team, finally feeling his legs sufficiently healed to risk a full race. Jabouille got his start in hill climb racing before entering the Renault 8 Gordini series, which gave many young French drivers their start in racing during the late 60s, working as his own race engineer alongside his friend and later brother-in-law Jacques Lafitte. 1968 saw Jabouille driving Formula 3 and moving into Formula 2 and sports cars with the Matra Works team. Then with his own ex-Alpine chassis when Matra quit motorsport in 1975. His personal sponsorship with Elf Fuels got him a one-off Tyrrell F1 drive in 1975, and when he won the F2 title the following year, he was recruited by Renault as an engineer-cum-driver to help develop their new Formula 1 turbo project. After a couple of frustrating years, Jabouille gave the team their first win in 1979, but by the end of 1980 he was being overshadowed by teammate René Arnoux and decided to move to Ligier, the other successful French team on the grid. Once again, Lotus brought along a pair of 88 chassis, and once again they were denied permission to race them. A frustrated Colin Chapman walked away from the circuit before a wheel had turned. Meanwhile, Brabham's controversial hydro-pneumatic suspension setup was again ruled legal, which can't have improved Colin's mood. Nelson Piquet took pole with Alain Prost alongside in the Renault, the powerful turbo engine suiting this fast circuit with long straights. The Williams duo started from the second row, Jones out-qualifying Reutemann in front of the home fans to gain some measure of revenge for Rio, followed by Arnoux and Rybak in the second Renault and Brabham respectively, a huge improvement for the Mexican in particular. Villeneuve was 5th in his lacklustre Ferrari, Rosberg an excellent 6th in the underfunded Fittipaldi, and Patrese and De Angelis completed the top 10. Perhaps understandably, Jabouille was off the pace in his Ligier and didn't qualify, joining the March and Dozella drivers on the pit wall for the race, while Ricardo Zunino again took the last space on the grid in the Tyrrell. Alan Jones got a great start and leaped into the lead from 3rd place, but Piquet quickly got back past and began to pull out a commanding lead. Jones, meanwhile, seemed to be struggling for pace, losing second to Reutemann on lap 2, then dropping behind Prost and Rybak. The long straights of the Buenos Aires circuit had a reputation as engine breakers, and so it proved again in 1981. Pironi's Ferrari Turbo gave up after just 3 laps, as did Mansell's Ford DFV. Rosberg's fine qualifying came to naught with a fuel problem a lap later, and Sura's Ford-powered Ensign would not repeat its Brazilian heroics, touring off after 14 laps. Hector Rybak in the second Brabham was going well and made it up to second before his distributor arm packed up on lap 33 and he was out. A disappointing result for Hector, who'd now scored just 1 point in 10 races for Brabham so far and retired from every race in 1981, while Jacques Lafitte had retired a couple of laps earlier, complaining of his Ligier's handling. Everything remained more or less the same at the top after that. Reutemann finished second, but looked delighted as this lifted him to the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Prost was third, Jones fourth and Arnoux fifth. The final point went to Elio De Angelis in his Lotus, after a 3-way fight with Patrese and Patrick Tambay that was the highlight of the afternoon. The Brabhams had shown that the movable suspension was certainly conferring an advantage on them, which only served to heighten Colin Chapman's frustration despite another point for De Angelis. The European season would open with the inaugural San Marino Grand Prix in 3 weeks' time, an event that many regarded as the real start of the season. Two of the sport's biggest names, Ferrari and McLaren, had both failed to trouble the scorers so far, and Ferrari's 1980 woes showed no sign of abating as they had yet even to finish a race, something they would be keen to rectify in front of their own fans.